Welcome back to the animal room. I hope you're all doing fine. Behind me you can see one of my personal favorite scapes I've done so far on the channel, the river scape. And I would really like to start using it as a backdrop for a lot more videos. Underneath the river scape there are two gaping holes in desperate need for some cool aquascapes. But before we can put some tanks down there, don't you think those hoses and wires make it all look messy? I certainly think so. Now originally my plan was to make custom tanks that would fit this space exactly and then have some doors above those that would just frame everything in. But lately I've been thinking up a lot of cool ideas for tanks I want to put there, most of which will do much better if we go with an open top design. So we're gonna scrap the doors up front, we're gonna put some kind of backing on the back end of this stand, and something else that's been bothering me for quite some time is the lack of doors at the bottom of this stand. So we're gonna address that as well in this video. But that's not gonna be it for this video. We have a lot of little maintenance things to do in the animal room, and we're gonna address all of that together in this video. So stick around, give the video a thumbs up, and let's get to work. The first thing we're addressing today is adding some details to the stand. I already had this piece of plywood stained in the same color as the rest of the stand, so by simply cutting it in half, I got the two pieces of wood that will go behind the tanks. Next, I began cutting small boards to length. These will be the frames around the doors I want to add. But in order to fit the plywood panel in the frames, all of these pieces will need a groove cut into them. This is probably the easiest and safest to do on a table saw, or maybe with a router table, but since I don't own any of those, I came up with this solution. I made a simple jig that clamps down the piece I want to cut, and this little board on top will help me cut exactly where I want to cut. And I decided I want to cut slightly off center. The saw blade doesn't leave a cut wide enough to accept the plywood, but by making the cut off center, I can flip the piece over and make another cut. And now it's wide enough for the plywood. And with all the wood cut, I'm now ready for assembly. That went together reasonably well, so a few hours later, when the glue had dried, I could start sanding down the doors. This made the doors look a lot better, but the real magic happens when we apply a stain. The original stain I used for my projects went out of production, so I've been trying to find something that looks similar, and although this one looks good, it's a bit harder to apply evenly than the last one. Anyway, I think it turned out great, so let's install everything. That looks really good. The back panels are a bit short, but you won't see any of that once we add the tanks. Talking about the tanks, let's make a few aquariums. I was lucky enough to find these two free aquariums online that fit the space perfectly. The only downside to these tanks, and the reason they were free, is that they have cracks in the bottom panel. But that's not a big deal. I have some scrap glass laying around that we can use to fix it. First I disassembled both tanks and took some measurements. I transferred those measurements to the new piece of glass, scored a line with a glass cutter and snapped off the excess. I repeated this process for both tanks. Next I used wet sandpaper to sand down the edges so they wouldn't be so sharp. We now have all the pieces we need to construct a new tank, and this process is quite easy. I began by laying down some old newspaper and placed our bottom panel on top. I then fitted all the other pieces around it and add masking tape around the edges. I cleaned the edges with isopropyl alcohol and then applied the silicone. The pieces are pressed together and held in place with pieces of masking tape around the corners. I apply an extra internal bead of silicone, smooth everything out with my finger and remove the tape on the inside. I then repeated the same process on the other tank and left him to cure for 48 hours. After that time you can flip over the tank and tear off the newspaper. Without the newspaper you will most likely get the tank stuck to whatever surface you're working on. Anyway, I cleaned up some of the external beads, did a water test off camera and then painted both of the back panels black. And while all of that dries, I want to make a few modifications to the river tank. I'm not gonna do anything too crazy, just rearranging some plants. First I'll remove the Cryptocorini Wenti Green and the Cryptocorini Balancea. Next I also removed the Hygrophila and parts of the Helferi. After that I began placing them back in. First I added a Balancea in the back left corner, and this one might look a bit bigger right now, and that's because I bought another one and added it to the mix. Next I placed the Wenti Green where the Balancea used to be and redistributed the Helferi all around it. And that's about it for this portion of the tank. You may notice that I didn't place the Hygrophila back, and that's because we're redoing another small section. In between the two islands I got this crypt. I believe it's Nefeli, but anyway, I think it will look much better if we move more towards the midground. This creates an open section behind it where I'll be planting the Hygrophila. And that's all the scaping done. I think it looks much better this way. By the way, the baby Hillstream loaches are still doing great and gain more confidence every day. In total I can count up to 5 babies, but that's just the ones I can see. There might be more. Meanwhile the paint has dried, so we can now finish the double tank setup. Now would you look at that, I really love the wood texture back here. I love that these tanks both have a black background. I really like the look of it. Now obviously they still need to be scaped, but I'll address that in a later video. They'll get their own dedicated scape videos. I got something really cool planned for these tanks and I can't wait to show it with you guys. I already got the fish going through quarantine as of now, and while I'm saying this, I do have something I can share with you guys. While I ordered the fish, I got more fish. I got more fish than I ordered, and I can show you the extra fish. They are in the frog tank. You can already see them moving. We got some zebra danios in there. I don't know why I got them. I did not order them. They just came in with the other fish. I'm happy about it though. I'm really happy about it. They're really cool fish, and I was already looking for fish that I could keep with the frogs, and these guys, they just check all the boxes, so that's really nice. But that'll have to do for this week's video. I really hope you liked it, and if you're hungry for more content, I recommend you watch this video next to see me build the mini shrimp jungle. I'll see you there.